And hello, everybody. Welcome back. So here we are. We left off with Tuckman's stages of team development: forming, storming, norming, performing, and adjourning. This is something that every team goes through, even if it's only for a little bit of time. This is the same Tuckman stages. I just reoriented it. Notice it's forming, and here's kind of what's going on: storming with bullets on what's going on, norming, and high performing is really where we want to get them. But what I love about this slide is notice how the project manager's role will change. You actually get payback for your effort, right? You're telling them what to do in forming, and you're building trust. In storming, you're guiding, you're coaching. Remember, conflict happens, and sometimes that's just from people trying to figure out their roles and responsibilities. You want to clarify those sort of things. In norming is where most of us live. There's some autonomy. You begin to participate as project manager as opposed to tell. But in high performing is really where you really get time back. You can delegate, you can give them space. It's a fire and forget, as we used to say in the military. If you're looking for a great movie on the a team going through these stages, watch the movie about the U.S. hockey team in the 2000, I think it was 1980 Olympics. I think it's called The Miracle on Ice. You will not forget this approach. When you're developing the team, remember this is still your role within Tuckman's stages. I just gave it a different view, a three-dimensional view. It's the same topic, Tuckman stages, but during the initiation of the project, you have more of a directive role, and you can see that it's going to change as you team build into this higher plane where you facilitate and end up hopefully in a supportive role by the close of the project. It's the same slide, just a three-dimensional view. I thought it was cool. Again, Miracle on Ice, great movie for describing that. Now, not sure how this slide got a little off, but let's bring it back. So when, as a project manager, it's our responsibility to team build. Here's some concepts that you might consider. One is called shu-ha-ri, right? Everybody goes through this. Under shu, when somebody's new, you can expect they're going to obey the rules. Then they'll move to ha. You're aware of it, so you're looking for it. Where they move away from the rules, they begin to break free. It's not that they're trying to be bad, but they get it. And now an exception is needed, and they feel like they have the knowledge to make this decision. And we want them to grow appropriately. And then re is finding your own individual path in the team. So the concept is called shu-ha-ri. We all kind of move through this. Another model is the Dreyfus model, where sometimes we begin as a novice, develop to beginner, we become competent, proficient, and then eventually an expert. And notice that your commitment and decision making and perspective are growing and evolving as you move up through these learned skills. Another way to take your team in a new direction, things to consider. Hey, so let's have fun with it, right? Now I'm back. It moved again. I'm not sure what that's about, but either way, let's have fun with it. We'll call this a celebration of knowledge, okay? You have the resource management plan. Everything's going well. You've made the staff assignments for your project, right? What do you need before you can start to develop the team, right? Well, ground rules are nice, but you don't need that before you begin developing the team. Love a resource calendar because it's nice to know when people are going to be available and part of your team as they come on and off your team. What do you need before you can start? Is it, training or whatnot? What's going on here? What do you think? Da 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 da. Da, da, da. Yes, you need resource calendars. You need to make sure that people are available. You do need team building. It's kind of a hard question. You do need training. You need team building. Ground rules are nice, but you need to know that everybody's available. That was just for fun. I hope you enjoyed it. Now, in this topic of resource management, it can be people, it can be equipment, it can be facilities, it can be electricity, etc., water. But we also, back to people, we have to motivate them, right, to get them through Tuckman stages. There are lots of ways to motivate people, and we're all motivated in different ways, especially as we age. I'm motivated less today by money and more by time off. Right? But there was a time in my life with lots of kids at home where my choices would have been different, right? So we all change over time. One approach is McGregor's theory X, theory Y, right? And you want to watch out for theory X leaders. You don't want to be that PM who feels that everybody needs watched, that they're unmotivated, that they don't like the work. You want to be that theory Y project manager who think people work without supervision, that they're entrepreneurs, that they want to achieve, right? Now, your team isn't always ready for theory Y. Sometimes you have to be a little more directive, especially as you move them through Tuckman stages. But the theory Y leader is really who you should aspire to be. It develops high productivity teams. There's also Maslow's hierarchy, and here's a picture here, I think taken from Wikipedia, where people move from these stages up the pyramid. They always start with psychological, and if they can't meet psychological needs, they'll never move beyond it. But once they have psychological needs met, then they're into safety needs, locking your house, money in the bank, stuff like that. Once they have psychological and safety, they're looking to meet love and belonging through self-esteem. And frankly, the top one is self-actualization. Be aware of those and help your team to move through those through personal motivation and through training and development. A few others just to touch on. There's McClellan's theory of needs. McClellan would say, hey, there are three primary things to consider. People have a need for achievement or affiliation with an organization or power. And that power, I don't mean in a negative way. Sometimes that power is socially oriented. Somebody's just the funny person, right? Let them be that because it bonds the team as long as it's a balance between wasted time. I am a big fan of Herzberg's theory. Notice I've highlighted the H just to help remember it because the H reminds me of hygiene factors. So Herzberg says, hey, there are two basic things happening here all the time. One is you have these motivating agents, which privately to me sounds like Maslow's hierarchy. This self-actualization, responsibility, professional growth, recognition. Those are motivating agents. You need those. But you also have hygiene factors, right? And hygiene factors are things like your work conditions or your salary or your personal life or work relationships, right? So the point is, if you have bad hygiene factors, if you fix them as a project manager, you're going to motivate your team. Yay. But if you already have good hygiene factors, improving good hygiene factors doesn't help motivate, right? So keep that in mind as you spend money. In the Air Force, we used to joke every year, my last 5 years, we'd get a 1% salary increase, right? And we'd be like, we'd joke, well, there's another case of beer, a payday, right? And it was a joke because we're saying it's not much. But had they taken away that 1%, instead of giving us 1%, what if they took away 1%? Yeah, we probably would have been demotivated. So making conditions worse demotivates. Making conditions much better motivates. Making conditions slightly better, if you already have pretty good hygiene, doesn't motivate at all. So consider those. I love Herzberg's theory. There's also contingency theory, and you're going to find yourself in that, maybe in the tower climbing business. When you first get together with your team and you're going into a stressful tower climbing job to install or uninstall satellite dishes, right? There can be a lot of stress. It's windy, it's snowy, it's cold, right? You become more task-oriented as a project manager. That's the contingency. But realize as you work with your team over months that your role should change, from less stressful, less task oriented to calmer, more of a relationship oriented approach. Okay, there's also theory Z and expectancy theory. I'll let you pause the slide and read those on your own. All of this, I like to bring it back to, week one, we talked about the issues log. Walk around with it, carry it, capture issues, right? It's a communication tool with your team, and it reminds you to solve issues and to get back with the person that brought up the issue. They're going to love it. Okay. And so, as in resource management, we're still using this issues log tool. Hey, here's another celebration of knowledge, right? So, the project performance appraisals are an output of developing your team, right? As you develop your team, you give them feedback, and so we can call that performance appraisals, right? Those performance appraisals are really just part of C, managing the project team. Now, closing in on the lecture this week, there's a lot here. I told you, resource management, it is robust. You also have conflict, right? And the first thing we want to do is to avoid conflict, right? So we can avoid it by setting those ground rules, those team ground rules in the team charter. We can plan our communications. We can follow good project management practices like active listening, and we can create clear roles and responsibilities. That's going to help avoid conflict. But in the end, conflict is inevitable. Tuckman's stages of team development show us that. And so we're going to put conflict on its head and use it to create an opportunity, is what I'm saying. Now, there are lots of sources of conflict. I personally would have thought that personal work styles would have been number one, but the research shows that actually the number one reason are schedule issues, and then task priorities. People, priorities keep changing. What about the resources assigned or technical opinions? You ever seen two technical experts argue amongst each other? Sure. And then administrative procedures and costs. So these are really the ranking of the sources of conflict. I thought that was very interesting. And then, to borrow a moment from the trial of O.J. Simpson, if the glove doesn't fit, you must quit. Well, I say conflict is best resolved by those involved. So don't feel like you always have to get involved. If you can let people resolve conflict themselves, you're much better off. Okay? It only escalate it when it gets to impacting the project, or if it's really an ethical or legal issue it involved. Now, there are strategies for resolving conflict. I list several of them here. Frankly, self-explanatory. The best is confronting the problem head-on with the people involved. Make it a win-win. Incorporate their views. And this is root cause analysis. This is problem solving. Any of these other ones might be useful, like withdrawing. If somebody is violent, time to withdraw. Just for the day, put a pin in it, go home, Schmitty, let's talk tomorrow. Of course, I'm also going to call security and let them know to be aware, etc. But sometimes withdrawal is the right answer, but not long-term. Long-term, the only real answer is confronting the problem head-on with root cause analysis. It is also kind of called... sometimes it's called collaborating, but I like the term confronting. As a military, we would force decisions. That's not the best, right? Sometimes it's necessary, but just know that's not the best way to go about it, okay? All right, and there's also the reward piece of being a project manager. It's one of your legitimate powers, right? Reward is best, penalty, something coercive is considered the worst form of power. And of course, being an expert is always valuable. We all know the resident expert, like, Susie will know. She's awesome, right? Charismatic can be a form of power. There's informational power and financial power as well. Bottom line, you have formal power and informal power. So do your team members. Be aware of that and use it appropriately. Okay, that's it for this week. See you guys at the assignment.